my friend, Roger McMillan. Roger.
I had forgotten that. Yeah. I really enjoyed this afternoon. Is Dominic still here? Dominic, I want you to know that I really respected what you did. And I also want you to know that I originally wrote my remarks in French, and I'm actually translating as I go along now. My talk was entitled, Be a Sponge. And that doesn't mean you borrow money from people in your office. What I do has become, oh, hang on, I got a green go. What I do and how I do it has become a distillation of everything I have learned by association with others in the industry, whether it be MDRT, Advocates National, Advocates Local, CALU, a very special study group I have the privilege of attending, or just talking to friends that I met in the industry on a casual basis, with the exception of Brian Mallard, who I room with at CALU, and every afternoon before we go to dinner, it's always a study group. Let me provide a little history. I started with Canada Life in 1970 in their U.S. division and was recruited into the agency system in December of 1972, where I managed to do reasonably well, and obviously they may ask me to be a manager. So I grew with a lot of good guys who were willing to share and talk. Our industry today is renowned for that quality. I was originally attracted by the 14-hour days, the rejection, the bad press, and times when I had no income to look forward to. I was told, just keep making those dials, and the clients, like the day follows the night, will come. I was told that if I do all the right things, prospecting for people who have a need, have economic potential, have a good sense of responsibility, and an ability to make intelligent, long-term decisions, everything I wanted in life would appear magically. Our business, as you've heard today, is the lowest paid easy work around, but it's also the highest paid hard work. And I thought, what did I get myself into? Looking back, I can't imagine doing anything else. In fact, I don't think I was really qualified to do anything else. Idea number two, and I'm going to do these, I hope in order, but I've made some changes because of what has happened today. And I recognize that there's only one person between me and the cocktail hour. Know how your products are built, how they work, and which ones are suitable to your client. One of the fundamentally good things that happened to me was that I started working for Canada Life in the U.S. actuarial department. I could add 2 and 2, so the guy that hired me thought I'd be an actuarial student. It was my responsibility to calculate these 14-column illustrations from all of the different agents and producers in the United States. If they wanted an illustration, there was nothing on computer. They called me, and I had to calculate. I sat there. At the time, there was something called minimum deposit in the U.S., where the client paid any for the first 7 premiums, and all the interest was deductible forever. We used these old Frieden industrial calculators. All the actuaries had one. And it sat on your desk, weighed about 50 pounds. You punch your numbers in, cranked it, and the thing would chatter and rock and roll for a while. That was okay, except when you had to take the work home. It was fun looking back on it. In fact, the whole actuarial floor would shake and rattle, and if everyone was using their Frieden at the same time. Point is, I learned how a life insurance policy works, how dividends work, how policy loans work, all that fun stuff. Universal life at this time, remember, did not exist. It came to be, a few years after that, as a more understandable version of whole life. I think the jury is out on that today. I think that knowledge becomes extremely important in what products you recommend to your clients. But it gave me confidence in the product and the work that I was doing on behalf of my clients. I will say that I truly believe there is a place for just about every product we have. The insurance companies wouldn't be offering them if it wasn't market-driven. And it is our duty, mine and yours, to know what to recommend. And I think you know, and in that respect, I think you need to know how they all work. It's also your duty to provide intelligent information to assist your choice for the client to choose. And incidentally, isn't it remarkable that one of the requirements today in the regulatory environment is suitability? Using a methodology consistently facilitates compliance with that objective. Green go. Learn to ask the right questions and listen to the answers. You've heard that all day long, so it must be meaningful. It builds trust, and you don't have a client until that person trusts you. In my opinion, our industry today is too unproductively process-oriented and not client-oriented. I know we have to do some things by regulation, and probably will have to do a lot more. My fact-finding interview, again, was right out, Julian, of The Art and Science of Building a Life Insurance Clientele by O. Alfred Granum. I used it over 40 years ago and still use it today. He, in fact, used to visit our agency because my mentor and manager at the time, Tony Laws, was, I think, one of the first group of managers to bring it into Canada. I wouldn't hesitate to suggest a new advisor starting in the business today grab a hold of that 3-ring binder and use it. This was not brilliance on my part. It was just the way I was taught, not knowing any better. Nothing is your own, incidentally, until you use it a lot and make it malleable to your own character. And speaking of character, I think one thing that everybody needs to be successful in this business, because it is a hard business, because you're dealing with human frailty all through the system, you have to have the desire to want to help people. If you don't have that desire, I truly think it's an uphill battle. That characteristic will singularly help you overcome the basic distrust people have of being sold something they don't want, however much they need it. I don't think we spend enough time developing our people skills, especially as it relates to putting people at ease and educating them to open their mind to ideas. One of the most important skills is asking questions and listening to them, to the answers. My fact-finding interview in Granum's book was designed to get people talking about themselves, what they want to happen in their lives, their family, their businesses, their retirement, what's important to them. Closing a case or making a sale or securing a client is all about building trust through an integrated process. It is about asking questions and moving on with solutions that make sense. I discovered that people really do want life insurance. They just don't want to pay for it. Well, educating I got a new title, Educate the Client so they can make an intelligent, informed decision. This is really important. People really don't have a problem owning life insurance, as I said. They just want you to help them pay for it. I always show 3 choices. This is part of my educational process: term insurance, whole life, and universal life. And I explain the pros and cons of each. I tell my clients there are 3 ways you can look after this problem. And I'm going to outline all 3 of them, and we can design the solution that meets your philosophy and your pocketbook. I am showing you all 3 to provide you with some insight. You may not be able to afford what you think is the right choice, but circumstances will change, and at least you know what your choices are. We can discuss the right type of insurance, but at least we can agree on the amount. And I use a simple capital needs analysis or an estate analysis. It is also very important to your client in understanding that the plans you are recommending are going to be around for a very long time. I've been in business now about 4 years. As much as I hate to acknowledge that, I got a certificate the other day at a appeal halt and life underwriters meeting I didn't know I was going to get it. It showed like a certificate that said I'd been a member for 42 years, or 32 years. It's not, it's not the sort of thing you want. I think one of the most important tools you can learn as part of your process of educating your clients is the time value of money. How many people here use the time value of money? Yeah, not very many. Okay. And basically what it is, it's just one line at the bottom of my three choices that tells you what the net present value is of the premiums they paid, or the contributions, the deposit, whatever you want to call them, and the net present value of the death benefit. And it boils down to a net choice of one of three expenses. And I think it helps people understand how life insurance works. A key point when I usually get down to a universal life illustration is I like changes from year to year. I like to show people what the increasing cash value is versus the premium. And I find I get a lot of conversation and a lot of involvement from clients when we start going through year by year. And for most plans, after about the 7th year, it varies with companies, and there's higher cash values in year 12 or 13 or whatever it is with some. But around the year 7, your increasing cash value is almost equal to your premium, total cash value. And when people see that, it alleviates this commitment to keep paying the higher premiums. I just went through that myself because I got to convert before June the 1st, my last block of term insurance. As I said 17 times before, education is very important. Someone mentioned David Downey this morning, and I remember seeing David Downey. It might have been in San Diego at an MDRT meeting, and he said something that stayed with me regarding education. He says, you tell somebody on Friday you'll have the answer for them on Monday. It makes for a lousy weekend, but you learn your stuff real fast. And I think that's very important for us to understand. We are constantly in an educational business, and it's not education for knowledge's sake. It's education so that we can communicate more appropriately with our clients. Transaction versus relationship. The sale you are making is you, not the product. I believe our industry's pendulum has swung too far to the product side and the lowest common denominator of regulation, and not enough towards the behavioral psychology side of why people make decisions. Don't get me wrong, as I've said earlier, knowing and understanding your products is extremely important, especially in applying them to your clients' goals and making it easy for them to understand. Don't lose sight of the fact that every person you're dealing with is a unique individual and will make decisions for their own reasons. This is as much an emotional process, actually it's probably more an emotional process than it is a logical process. It is also why asking questions and moving the conversation in the direction that is significant and important to the client is crucial to the relationship. As an aside, a few years ago, I sat on a committee called the Fair Dealing Model, supervised by the Ontario Securities Commission, and was kind of alarmed at one of the items discussed. In the preamble to the Fair Dealing Model document is an acknowledgement of the fact, and this is right in the preface, that they recognize the financial services industry is transforming from a transaction-based industry to a relationship-based industry. That was the last time they used the word relationship in 387 pages. One item discussed was the Know Your Client checklist. They asked me how long it took for me to complete my fact-finding interview, and I said, it depends, 1 to 2 hours. They were aghast. They said, we couldn't have our representatives spending that kind of time. And they were so concerned about this form for the form's sake because it covers their backside. Our industry has tended to take a different approach. We really believe in developing relationships and asking questions and making sure that the plans we put into place are the client's plans. What they would like to see happen to their family or their business should they die, become disabled, how they would go about transitioning assets into income for their retirement. To my knowledge, there's still only 2 reasons why people buy life insurance. One is because they love someone, the other one is because they're obligated to someone. And nothing that I've learned in 40 years of practice has changed that. And it doesn't matter whether you're doing a simple capital needs analysis or a complex estate analysis with an estate freeze or a family trust. Those are all tools that we use to solve a particular problem. One of the things, I went to a LIMRA meeting down in Disneyland some time ago, and some guy was on the podium. He started talking about income. He says, we, as an industry, talk too much about assets and not enough about income. He says, people pay their bills monthly, they get paid monthly or twice a month. So that's what they're used to dealing with. One of the questions I like asking people is, are you saving money for retirement? And they go, oh, yeah. I said, so how much monthly income have you accumulated so far? Sorry? How much monthly income have you accumulated? Well, I don't know. I've got, $187,000 in my RSP. And so I like to explore that whole process. I have a very quick Excel spreadsheet that I developed. It's got some assumptions in it. And I can plug in what they've accumulated. And everything translates into monthly income at age 60, 65, 70. And there's an interest assumption on the payout. It's a simple spreadsheet. If you want a copy of it, email me and I'll send it to you. Will planning. I spent a lot of time on a person's will. I show them a little schematic diagram, which is on the back of the fact-finding sheet that comes out of the Grantham manual. And it shows 5 little blocks across the top. Personal assets, business assets, life insurance, government plans, and there's one other, I can't remember. And it's a funnel, and I said, all of your assets flow into this funnel, some by the law of survivorship, some by business agreement, some by named beneficiary, and I explain all the advantages of that. And I said, but what comes out of the bottom of the funnel is what your family has to live on. Now, that can be as simple or as complex as you'd like to make it, but it forms something that I can talk to the clients about, and you know what? It seems to work and resonate with them, and I include it in my estate book. Every client has an estate book, and I go through life, disability, retirement. There's a section in there for everything. My little spreadsheet on retirement works, and every time they come back into my office, they bring this with me, or they bring it out when I go to their place. It works well. It helps us to communicate. See the people. Well, hard work will solve most problems. I can't get over Wade's 250 lives. I just can't imagine. I just don't know how he does it. Choose a target market. I started off talking to small business people. And there's a story behind that. I was talking to a client who was in the laser transiting business, and I must have said something to try to elicit some sympathy from him, and he says, come with me. He says, when I go out, I have to drag all my equipment. I go out whether it's snowing or raining. I got to go to a job site. I got to set it up. I get dirty. I start pointing this thing. And he says, you've got all these clients lined up. He was in one of these industrial malls. He says, these guys are lined up waiting for you. And you know what? After I sort of sucked up my gut a little bit, I started calling on them, and that's how I really started doing well in the business. Targeting people you want to see. I use group insurance as a prospecting tool. I've got a fairly decent block of group clients, and I have no more time. So, and I've got about 18 pages left to go. Thank you for your patience. I know there's only one guy. Oh, by the way, keeping your own house in order. I have something I want to say. May I say it, please? I bought some critical illness maybe 2 years ago. When my wife turned 65, we had this option of taking the money that we paid in, taking it out and canceling the contract. For some reason, she said she didn't want to do that. She said, you keep paying the premium. Easy for her to say. So that was on July the 23rd. August the 10th, she suffered a stroke. I thought I'd lost the woman I was living with. We rushed her down to the hospital. They did everything fabulously. They injected this TPA, and it was like the hand of God waved over her, and her whole left side returned to normal. She was discharged 4 days later. She came home, started bleeding. Took her back into emergency, diagnosed her with stage 3 colon cancer. Based on the point I'm making of the story was the critical illness policy paid out within 30 days, and it allowed me the opportunity to stay home and look after her. So when they talk about earlier about getting your own house in order, do not question going without critical illness. Thank you very much.